Hi, sweetie pie. I'm going to read you another book now, this one in English. I have That's the back. This is the front. The Biggest Bear. It's an older book by Lind Ward, Caldecott Medal winner. Here's a little boy with a rifle and a bear with a bit of a leash on the bear. I haven't read this before, and I do see that there's a rifle in the picture, so I have no idea what this one's about. We shall see. The Biggest Bear by Lind Ward. Johnny Orchard lived on the farm farthest up the valley and closest to the woods. He lived on a farm, a big farm probably. On the hill behind Johnny's grandfather, I'm sorry, on the hill behind the barn, Johnny's grandfather had planted a few apple trees. These were the only apple trees in the valley, and they were known as Orchard's Orchard. That's a nice sized barn. It's bigger than their house. Look at that. That's their house. That's the barn. My house is bigger than my barn. I love barns. However, whenever Johnny went down the road to the store for a piece of maple sugar or something, he always felt humiliated. The other barns in the valley usually had a bear skin nailed up to dry, but never Johnny's barn. Yes, that's something to feel humiliated about. Sarcasm. There's a little boy feeling dejected because he doesn't have a dead bear hanging on his barn. Every fall for 3 years, Mr. McLean had come in with a bear. Yes, and one evening, Mr. Pennell had just stepped out to the edge of the nearest field and shot 3 in a row as they came heading for the tall timber. Not loving this book yet. Kind of hard to imagine how it will. It is true that Johnny's grandfather had met a bear once when he was on his way back from picking apples, but he had gone in one direction while the bear had gone in another. One might argue that that would be the thing you'd want to hang up on your barn wall. The fact that the bear went in one direction and you went in the other. But I'll leave my editorial comment. When Johnny had asked him why, his grandfather had said, "Better a bear in the orchard than an orchard in the bear," because their last name is Orchard. It was very humiliating. Oh, interesting. Humiliating that his grandfather came out alive and that the bear came out alive. Sarcasm. Johnny said, "If I ever see a bear, I'll shoot him so fast he won't know what hit him, and we'll have the biggest bear skin in the whole valley." Kind of glad that you're learning to play frisbee instead. Far more noble art. After he had gone quite a way into the woods, he came to a place where there was a big stump, and something seemed to be moving in the bushes behind it. It was a bear, all right. A little bear. He seemed hungry, so Johnny gave him a piece of maple sugar. I wonder if maybe his mom is hanging on someone's barn. On the way home, the bear ate all the maple sugar Johnny had in his pocket. Johnny's mother and father were a little surprised to see that Johnny had really brought a bear back with him. Johnny's grandfather said, "I suppose you know what a bear likes to eat?" That is a bit of a surprise. The bear liked the milk that was meant for the calves. He liked the mash meant for the chickens. He liked the apples in the orchard. He's a bit of a mischievous bear. He liked pancakes on Sunday morning. Well, this is a pretty nice family to let him have his bear right there in the kitchen, eating pancakes. And most especially, he liked the maple sugar Johnny brought him from the store. He's getting a little bigger already. There was hardly anything he didn't like, and Johnny's mother got pretty upset when he started looking for things on the kitchen shelves. I bet. In the fall, Mr. McCarroll got pretty upset when the bear spent a night in his cornfield. Oh, excuse me. In the winter, he had a wonderful time with the bacons and hams in the Pennell's smokehouse. Oh dear. Looks like most of the meat is off the bones by now. It was bad enough that he emptied all the sap buckets when the McLeans were tapping their maple trees in the spring. But it was worse later when he got in the McLeans' shed and drank up most of their maple syrup. He was always eating, it seemed, and he grew pretty fast and got pretty big. He's now quite a big bear. Finally, Mr. McLean started talking to Mr. Pennell. They both went to see Mr. McCarroll. Then they all came to see Johnny and his father. These are good drawings, aren't they? And just with the one color, the dark, brown, black color. It's amazing what you can do. Doesn't that just look like you really get a feel for what those guys not just looked like, what their clothes were like, what their shoelaces were like, what their socks were like, what their pitchfork was like, and all with just a piece of paper and some kind of charcoal or a crayon of some sort. Pencil or something. What they had to say about Johnny's bear was plenty. He was a trial and a tribulation to the whole valley. Look how big that bear is. After the neighbors had left, Johnny's father explained to Johnny that the bear would have to go back to the woods. So the next morning, Johnny started out. They walked for miles due west on an old lumber road, way past Baldwin's Hill, to an old clearing that was overgrown with raspberries. Johnny explained to the bear that the time had come for him to go and live in the woods like other bears. He gave the bear a last hug and started the long walk home. While he was doing the chores next morning, Johnny saw that the bear hadn't stayed in the woods very long. He's back to see his friend. So Johnny started out again, due east this time, to the blueberry bluff, way past Watson's Hill, and when Johnny left him, the bear was eating blueberries very happily. I'm not seeing the blueberries. Maybe this is a picture of them along the way. But 2 days later, he was back again. This time, Johnny took him due south and got a boat and rowed 2 miles out in the lake and left him on Gull's Island, which is a pretty big island. But the next morning, there he was, not even very wet. Well, this is one enterprising bear, I must say. Johnny and his father talked it over and they decided there was only one thing to do. Oh, Lord. Johnny said he would do it. They didn't really have to go very far, but Johnny somehow kept on walking. They went north this time. There were no roads here, and it was part of the woods where Johnny had never been before. At last they stopped. Johnny seemed to have a hard time getting a bullet in the gun. While he was working with it, the bear seemed to get a whiff of something. Without warning, he took off through the woods. Johnny went with him. They went through the woods so fast that Johnny lost his gun, but he held on to the rope. They seemed to be heading for a sort of little log house. To be continued.